Today, we begin our beer journey in New York City, one of the most iconic cities in the world, briefly introduced in the opening moments. Our focus starts in Brooklyn, widely regarded as the birthplace and backbone of New York's modern craft beer scene. For clarity, Brooklyn is divided here into three sections. Before we start our brewery journey, here's the simple scale I'll be using. We begin with central Brooklyn, the closest region to Manhattan, and a natural first stop. DUMBO, short for Down Under the Manhattan Bridge Overpass, was once one of Brooklyn's most industrial neighborhoods. In the late 19th century, this waterfront was packed with factories, warehouses, and rail connections that powered New York's manufacturing economy. What defines DUMBO today is not just its history, but its bridges. The Manhattan Bridge towers overhead, its steel structure framing the streets like a permanent monument. As industry declined, artists and creative studios moved into these abandoned spaces, transforming raw brick and steel into galleries, murals, and public art. In DUMBO, art doesn't erase the industrial past. It builds directly on top of it. Today, places like Time Out Market reflect DUMBO's latest chapter. Industrial spaces reimagined as public gathering points where food, design, and creativity meet. DUMBO remains a neighborhood shaped by bridges, industry, and creativity, where New York's history is still visible in every wall and beam. Right here in DUMBO, next to Time Out Market, sits Evil Twin Brewing. With views of the Manhattan Bridge just outside, the space leans heavily into design. Clean interiors, graphic art, and a curated atmosphere that fits the neighborhood well. The beer list is extensive, covering a wide range of styles, but prices run high, and the drinking experience doesn't always match the visual polish. Still, as a stop in DUMBO, it works. More about place, setting, and context than the beer itself. That puts it firmly in the C tier. Randolph is more than a brewery stop. It's a well-designed space that fits DUMBO surprisingly well. Both the exterior and interior lean heavily into industrial Brooklyn aesthetics. Exposed tanks, raw concrete, wood beams, and greenery mixed in just enough to soften the edges. You'll notice the branding everywhere. From ceiling fans to fermentation tanks, everything carries the simple R mark. Even the wall art plays along with vintage Prohibition-era "We Want Beer" posters, echoing a time when beer itself was an act of defiance. Their most popular beer, Cheap Sunglasses, is approachable and easy drinking, but ultimately a bit safe. Nothing offensive, nothing memorable either. As a beer, it lands solidly in B tier. Still, as a stop in DUMBO, it works. More about place, setting, and atmosphere than the beer itself. Sound Plus Fury Brewery Kitchen is one of those places that instantly impresses the moment you step inside. The interior blends industrial brewery aesthetics with an almost fantastical wizard-like atmosphere. Exposed stainless steel tanks sit right next to the bar, while shelves of botanicals, dried citrus, spices, and house infusions line the counter, giving the space the feel of a modern alchemist's workshop. Even the details are carefully thought out. From the curved wooden bar and open brewing equipment to the playful, slightly mystical decor overhead, the space feels alive. Not just a brewery, but a designed experience. The cocktail program is fully developed as well, with house-made syrups, infusions, and spirits on display, showing that this isn't beer-only thinking, it's a complete beverage operation. On the beer side, quality is consistently strong across the board. IPAs, Märzen, lagers, wheat beers, every style is solid with no weak links on the menu. Nothing feels rushed or experimental for the sake of novelty. Instead, each beer is clean, balanced, and confidently executed. The pizza lands comfortably above average, well made and reliable, pairing naturally with the beers without stealing focus. Taken together, the space, the brewing setup, the drinks, and the atmosphere, this is a brewery that understands both craft and presentation. Sound Plus Fury earns a clear S tier rating. Not because of one standout beer, but because everything here works together seamlessly. Before reaching Transmitter, the street itself tells a story. From the former home of Sweet and Low to the gates of Steiner Studios, where countless films quietly take shape. All of it sits within the historic Brooklyn Navy Yard, a place where industry, creativity, and reinvention overlap. Hidden inside the Brooklyn Navy Yard, Transmitter Brewing feels more like a destination you discover than stumble upon. The space itself leans clean and industrial, steel, glass, barrels stacked quietly in the background. There's a calm, almost insulated atmosphere here, removed from the city's noise, which fits its tucked-away location. Beer-wise, the lineup doesn't really stand out. The sour ales, often the highlight here, feel muted rather than expressive, lacking the brightness or depth you'd expect. The rest of the beers follow a similar pattern, technically fine but flat in character. Nothing is outright flawed, yet nothing leaves a lasting impression either. What truly elevates the experience is the outdoor patio. On a clear day, you can sit back with a glass and catch a distant view of the Empire State Building, an unexpected and distinctly New York moment inside a former naval complex. Transmitter is less about standout beer and more about setting and context, a place worth visiting for the atmosphere and location, but not a brewery that pushes the needle. Overall, C tier. South Brooklyn hosts one of New York City's densest brewery clusters. From Red Hook to Gowanus, beer here reflects Brooklyn's working history. Practical, compact, and tightly woven into the urban grid. Located deep in Red Hook, Strong Rope Brewery sits far from the usual tourist routes. Getting here takes effort, but the setting makes that journey part of the experience. The brewery occupies a former warehouse space, keeping much of its industrial character intact. Exposed beams, brick walls, and a wide open taproom that feels functional rather than styled. Large windows and outdoor seating offer clear sightlines across the harbor. And on a clear day, the Statue of Liberty is visible directly from the property, adding a quiet sense of place rather than spectacle. Beer-wise, Strong Rope delivers a solid and confident lineup. The pale ale stands out with a pronounced malt backbone, grain-forward, clean, and well-balanced, showing restraint rather than gimmicks. It's the kind of beer that holds attention through structure and drinkability, not novelty. Across the board, the beers are consistent and well-made. Styles are clearly defined while the lineup avoids extremes. The overall execution is reliable and satisfying. Tier A, strong fundamentals, dependable quality, and a location that quietly elevates the experience. Located in Carroll Gardens just off the Brooklyn-Queens Expressway, Other Half sits deep in a working industrial corridor, surrounded by warehouses, loading docks, and highway infrastructure. The setting feels raw and utilitarian, very much a production space first, taproom second. Inside, the brewery keeps a clean, functional layout with visible barrels, stainless steel lines, and a steady flow of fresh ingredients, reinforcing its large-scale brewing operation. The beers, particularly the IPAs, are competent and well-made, but largely blend into the crowded, hazy IPA landscape. Solid, consistent, yet lacking standout character. Overall rating, B tier. Reliable beer in a distinctly industrial Brooklyn setting, but not a destination driven purely by the lineup itself. Set back along a modest Brooklyn street, Wild East Brewing Co. presents itself with little fanfare. The facade is simple and functional, with exposed brick and muted industrial elements that blend naturally into the surrounding neighborhood rather than trying to stand out. Inside, the space opens up into a warm, thoughtfully designed taproom. Clean lines, wood textures, soft lighting, and visible tanks create a calm, well-balanced atmosphere. It feels intentional without being flashy, comfortable for long stays, conversations, and focused tasting. Beer-wise, Wild East leans confidently into classic European-inspired styles. The Pilsner stands out in particular, clean, crisp, and well executed, with solid balance and restraint. Overall, the lineup is consistent and reliable, favoring technique and drinkability over hype. A solid A-tier stop in Brooklyn. Tucked along Ninth Street, right next to Ninth Street Espresso, the Threes feels more like a neighborhood bar than a destination brewery. The exterior is modest and easy to miss, blending quietly into the block without any visual push for attention. Inside, the space is warm and restrained. Wood tones, soft lighting, and an unhurried layout that leans toward a calm, cafe-adjacent drinking experience rather than a high-energy tap room. It's the kind of place that invites lingering rather than tasting flights at speed. Beer-wise, the Pilsner stands out as a reliable highlight. Clean, balanced, and well executed, fitting the room perfectly. The rest of the lineup stays solid and consistent, reinforcing the Threes as a thoughtfully run, quietly confident stop. Comfortably A-tier. North Brooklyn packs 5 breweries into one compact corridor, from Greenpoint to Williamsburg, forming a walkable cluster where classic lagers, modern ales, and neighborhood tap rooms quietly define Brooklyn's everyday beer culture. Hop off the G train at Nassau Avenue and the neighborhood opens up at walking speed. A few minutes from the station, you'll pass local cafes, low-key bars, and converted industrial spaces before reaching the breweries. It's the kind of area where everything feels close, unforced, and connected. Perfect for a slow crawl rather than a checklist stop. Keg and Lantern Brewing Company sits along a busy Greenpoint corridor, operating as both a neighborhood bar and an in-house brewery. Inside, the space is clean and thoughtfully designed, with warm lighting, polished surfaces, and a layout clearly built for casual drinking and food service rather than production showcase. While the setting is comfortable and visually put together, the beer itself feels uneven and largely unremarkable, lacking distinct character or depth. The kitchen offerings follow a similar pattern. Items like the buffalo wings are serviceable but forgettable, functioning more as bar food than a reason to return. Overall, it works as a convenient local hangout, but from a beer-focused perspective, it lands firmly in C tier. TALEA Beer Company has grown well beyond a single neighborhood brewery, emerging as one of New York City's most recognizable modern craft brands. Founded by a female-led team, TALEA brings a distinctly considered perspective to both brewing and presentation, one that prioritizes balance, approachability, and design clarity rather than intensity or excess. That sensibility is immediately visible in the Williamsburg tap room. The space feels closer to a contemporary cafe or design-forward social space than a traditional brewery, defined by natural light, soft color tones, plants, and carefully composed materials. It's polished without feeling sterile and relaxed without slipping into casual disorder. The beer program mirrors this philosophy. Sours stand out as a clear strength, showing clean acidity, restrained sweetness, and a consistently refreshing profile. Overall, the lineup favors drinkability and precision over bold extremes. Coffee service further reinforces TALEA's hybrid identity, positioning the space as a daytime to evening destination rather than a beer-only stop. With multiple locations across New York City, TALEA's expansion reflects not hype, but a repeatable formula. Clear branding, cohesive aesthetics, and technically sound beer that appeals to a broad urban audience. It's a brewery that understands scale without losing identity. A tier. On the walk toward Brooklyn Brewery, the streets feel like an open-air gallery. Bold typography, graphic murals, and raw industrial facades blending seamlessly with contemporary design. Warehouse walls double as canvases, where street art and minimal signage reflect Brooklyn's creative pulse. From a certain angle, the skyline opens up, and the Empire State Building quietly appears in the distance. Manhattan hovering on the horizon, a reminder of how closely these two worlds coexist. Brooklyn Brewery is as much a landmark as it is a brewery. Founded in 1988, it is widely regarded as one of the earliest pioneers of Brooklyn's modern craft beer movement, helping put the borough back on the brewing map decades before today's explosion. The Williamsburg Taproom occupies a vast former industrial space with exposed beams, wood-heavy interiors, large communal tables, and curated murals that blend heritage with contemporary design. Polished, energetic, and unmistakably Brooklyn. The atmosphere excels as a social and cultural venue, often feeling closer to a beer hall or event space than a traditional brewery. The beers themselves are solid and dependable. Brooklyn Lager remains the flagship, but overall lean conservative by today's craft standards. Strong on history and environment, more restrained on innovation, this lands firmly at B tier. The area around Round Table Brewing shows hints of a local Latin American community, seen in storefront colors and everyday street details that quietly soften the surrounding industrial landscape. Round Table Brewery offers a cozy neighborhood pub experience tucked into Brooklyn's streetscape. The space is intimate and relaxed, with a small bar charm that encourages lingering rather than spectacle. The beer selection is competent and clean, staying within classic, drinkable styles without pushing boundaries. Nothing here demands attention, but nothing disappoints either. It's the kind of place you'd return to casually, not chase across town. A comfortable stop for locals, anchored more by atmosphere than innovation. Overall, C tier. Grimm Artisanal Ales impresses immediately with a carefully designed space, high ceilings, layered lighting, greenery, and a refined industrial aesthetic that feels deliberate rather than trendy. Even the glassware is thoughtfully chosen, adding to the overall sense of polish and visual cohesion. The taproom is energetic and consistently busy, clearly thriving as a Brooklyn social hub. Unfortunately, the beer doesn't quite rise to the level of the setting. The IPA tasted clean but unremarkable, lacking the depth or character to stand out in a competitive scene. Strong atmosphere and presentation carry the experience, but based on the glass alone, it settles at a B tier. This is the final ranking of all 13 breweries visited in Brooklyn. The only S-tier brewery in this journey. Sound Plus Fury Brewery and Kitchen. Outstanding beer, refined interior design, and a consistently high standard across every pour. Next, we continue our journey across New York's other 4 boroughs. See you next time.